Ahoy there fellow pirates. So, I was collecting some footage for an upcoming video concerning the Maiden Voyage, which is coming soon, and I decided to have a mess around and see if I could break the voyage a bit. And I was not disappointed. So firstly, you should know that the ship in the Maiden Voyage is immune to any kind of hull damage. However, it is still able to take damage to the mast. On one occasion, I set the ship's mast on fire until it collapsed, and for some reason I was unable to access the wood barrel on my ship, or use the wood in my inventory, and I was straight up stuck. My ship couldn't move, I couldn't leave my ship because it's surrounded by an invisible barrier that respawns you back on board, so I ended up having to exit to the menu. So there, I've broken the Maiden Voyage. End of the video. Okay fine, I'll do a bit more. One funny thing I did was I dragged my ship into this rowboat cave and then went up the ladder on the mast which brings you inside the overhanging rock, but that's nothing. You can do that in the main game. I tried seeing if you could do the whole voyage on just the rowboat without talking to the pirate lord, however there's a respawn barrier surrounding the whole island until the game gives you permission to raise your ship's anchor and leave. Once your ship's anchor is up, you can't leave your ship, and it can't sink since it can't take hull damage. It seemed like the developers have thought of everything. But whoever said we weren't able to despawn the ship? In the main game, if your ship is resting on sand for more than 5 minutes, it will despawn, much to the frustration of many inexperienced players. This mechanic still exists in the Maiden Voyage, and when the ship despawns, a new one will spawn, and this new ship is a little different from the previous one. This one can take hull damage, and can therefore sink. And additionally, the invisible respawn barrier around it doesn't cause you to respawn, it's simply an invisible wall that causes your ship to drag you along with it. So, once again, I sailed my ship through the shroud, and nearly got to the end before I destroyed my ship with fire. My idea was to have my ship sink during the ending screen of the voyage, however, the fire got a bit out of control and killed me, and during the brief black screen you get when you die, my ship sunk. However, rather than respawning me back on Old Sailor's Isle, the game instead did the equivalent of a backspawn in the main game, and I was respawned on the other side of the invisible barrier keeping you from going into the shroud. It seems the Sea of Thieves gods have blessed me with usable content. And so, I just started swimming. First I had a run around on this absolute shonker of a rock before discovering all I had was my pistol. It seemed all the rest of my equipment was gone. I couldn't switch to my sword, and all I had was what remained in my inventory, such as food and cannonballs. And so I began to swim northeast. I knew it was pretty likely that there was a hitbox at the end of the shroud that caused the Maiden Voyage to end, so I knew that if I swam in a northeastern direction, I could avoid this hitbox and find myself in the Sea of Thieves, or the Maiden Voyage's version of it anyway. So, how much of the Sea of Thieves can you explore on this version of the map? The answer? Not very much of it. I swam towards a low poly island which I believe is supposed to represent Devil's Ridge, but it's way too small. Most likely they just made a smaller version of the island and brought it closer to the camera to save on resources. Next, I wanted to see if there was a fort underneath the skeleton fort cloud. All I can really say is, thank you Sea of Thieves for having an auto sprint button. That's numlock by the way. What followed might just be the longest uninterrupted swim in Sea of Thieves history. Well, my disappointment was immeasurable and my day was ruined. There was nothing here but a cloud that was really high up in the air for some reason. I don't really know what I was expecting. An active fort. Yeah, I was going to do a fort on the Maiden Voyage. Yeah, that would have made sense. Hang on. How do I get back? Oh, luckily all the rocks and stuff that are clearly visible on the voyage are still quite visible from this distance. I didn't want to drown myself as to risk respawning on Old Sailor's Isle, and so began the long swim back. I arrived on Thieves Haven, or what looks like a weird mangled low poly version of it, and had a little explore. Here's a side-by-side comparison. I also had a quick explore of the shipwreck nearby, which I never realised sticks really far out of the water. There wasn't a whole lot to see inside, I'll be honest. I then decided to see if I could activate the barrier that ends the voyage, and that worked. So, I guess, here's what the ending of the voyage looks like without your ship. I would have liked to see this galleon up close, but I can't think of any way to do that. Oh hey, look, it's me! This isn't the end though just yet. There was one more thing to try. I discovered that it was possible to get around the invisible barrier surrounding the second sloop by shooting yourself vertically out of your cannon. This would bring you over the barrier. So my plan was that I would see if I could shoot myself over my ship's barrier and also over the barrier preventing you from sailing into the shroud, and leave my ship travelling through the shroud at a very slow pace. I would then be able to swim around the hitbox that ends the voyage and meet my ship on the other side of the hitbox, allowing me to sail around this barren ocean. Unfortunately, this plan failed pretty much immediately because the barrier keeping you from entering the shroud seems to be very, very tall indeed, and I was unable to shoot over it. Therefore, the only method for getting to the other side of this barrier as far as I know is to make sure your pirate dies right before your ship sinks, causing you to get the equivalent of a backspawn that sends you to the other side of the barrier. The last thing I wanted to do was make my ship sink in the ending screen, so I did. So there you are. The only really weird thing that happened was a blank background to the title at the end, and so there, I've broken the Maiden Voyage, end of the video.